Hello, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Ross.
And I'm Patrick.
And we are joined today by Matt and Rich from Steamforged Games.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for making the journey, guys. It's really appreciated.
Thanks for having us on the hottest day of the year.
Yeah, under a small sun, just to make it just that little bit warmer.
Perfect.
I
It's
did
exactly
bring
what
the
I
fan
dreamed
in
of.
today.
Yeah, I've got a fan.
Yeah, we do have a fan. Yeah.
Which you probably won't feel. You'll feel the least of being in the middle.
A little bit, yeah.
I did kind of break on the way in.
I got two radiators.
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
by the
afraid
side
so.
of it.
Sorry, man. Do apologise.
If you want during, I'll describe the feeling to you.
So was your journey okay?
Mine was fine. Yeah. I drove up. Although slightly uninterestingly, had to have sausage roll. Did not match up with the Greggs one. So
They never do.
they never do. It wasn't Greggs.
My youngest child, if it will just turn down a sausage roll if it's not Greg.
Yeah.
Even if we do what we sometimes do, is put it in the Greg's bag, which we keep.
Oh, that's
And he's,
Really?
and he's still not convinced.
Do you know you can get them frozen?
Yes.
Chuck them in your air fryer.
Wait,
Yeah.
you can get a
You get frozen
Greggs.
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 It's
Yeah.
like, what
Is
you
it
need to do is you
Iceland?
need to go to the pub, have a few beers, make sure you're peckish, and then go shopping. The stuff that you can find in the freezer section is unbelievable.
Honestly, these are things you can only learn.
We've got no milk, but we've got 42 frozen kebabs.
Exactly. I remember me and my missus got hammered one time. We went shopping, we came back, we had one of every Finder's crispy pancake.
That is like drunk shopping at its
It was
best.
so
That
bad.
was like the horse meat era as well.
Oh, it was grim. It was grim. I mean, they're lovely, but they're not good for you.
Is it bad that I felt a bit nostalgic for the horse meat era?
The horse meat era. Yeah.
Simpler times.
Edwina and John. Feeding their kids eggs.
They're absolutely right, yeah.
Wow. I was going to, just before we leave the sausage roll track, controversial opinion, I think arguably the vegan sausage roll from Greggs might be better.
I mean, I am not your target audience for this.
We've had this argument.
It's got, because
It's got carrot in it.
does it? I don't know. But they're seasoned really nicely.
Well,
Everyone
that's why
knows that carrot only exists and should exist in one place. Cake.
And rabbits.
In a rabbit and in a cake.
I love how when you asked that question, I came into frame and like everyone just looked at the state of me and went, Ross will not have an opinion on vegan sausage.
Vegan
roll."
sausage what?
And I haven't got a clue.
Lovely. So Steamforged Games, we should probably get started on that, shouldn't we? How did it all begin?
It's quite a while ago now, isn't it? 10 years.
10 years. This
10
is
years
our
ago.
10-year anniversary, isn't it? That we're celebrating
Amazing.
like crazy people. We're just working really hard like we always do. So Rich and I met playing Warmachine, actually, which is probably kind of foreshadowing a part of this conversation. But we got to know each other. We were quite active in the tournament scene and going over to Cardiff and, up to Element and places like that. And we just hit it off and seemed to have a similar outlook on games and actually we're getting a little bit frustrated at the time, being quite active gamers. I was in the video game industry at that moment in time, and I was getting a little bit frustrated that a lot of the product that was coming out didn't seem to have value for money for the end user. It seemed to be, just the same old. And so we, like a lot of gamers sitting there going, oh, well, I could do a lot better. Oh, this is terrible. And then we're like, well, why don't we give it a go? Kickstarter was in its infancy at the time.
Yeah, it's just starting to come through, and like at that time as well, it was more about like the indie projects. It would be as fleshed out as it is now. You kind of had an idea or a couple of pictures and a couple of bits, and people would buy into it very much concept level. So I think we'd kind of said, between us, Matt's background in producing video games, mine in kind of digital design. I was a teacher as well. We kind of went, let's have a go, and fast forward 2 years of long nights and 1 a.m. finishes, and we had a kind of game, didn't we?
I mean, originally I think I had about 4 or 5 ideas for games, and we ended up cherry picking Guild Ball as what we thought would be the simplest thing for us to do, because we didn't want to bite off way more than we could chew. We proceeded to bite off way more than we could chew. So that was absolute. We learned an awful lot from that. Simple things like turns out that if you can allow people with backing to pick and choose individual models, it takes quite a lot of time to do fulfillment. It's an absolute nightmare. So we learned an awful lot of lessons with that. But Guild Ball was, and I've often sort of described it as a wonderful success, but it was in that horrible kind of spot where it wasn't quite enough for us to go, cool, we can now give up our day jobs and dedicate ourselves to this. But it was enough to go, this is something serious and something that we absolutely need to, pursue. So we're kind of caught betwixt and between. So as Rich kind of says, we ended up working 2 jobs for about 2 or 3 years.
Brutal.
Just slamming it, but nothing that other people don't do. But it got there in the end, and we landed a couple of big deals with distribution in America. That really put us onto the map, as it were. And then during that time, I bumped into someone. Rich and I were at the British licensing show in London, and I bumped into someone. And I have this habit of everyone I meet, I'm just assuming that I either know them or they're going to be one of my best mates. So I will just talk to them like that. So I bumped into this guy, and I swear to God, I'd met him before. Hadn't. And I was chatting to him, and he was a Japanese guy called Shuhei, and chatting to him, but Japanese culture is one of politeness and courtesy. So he obviously thought, well, maybe I did meet this kind of crazy big idiot. And so he was being super friendly back. I'm like, oh, we definitely know each other. So we're kind of like riffing off of each other, chatting away. And he said, oh, do you think Dark Souls will make a good board game? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we can make a board game out of Dark Souls. So yeah, then we did that Kickstarter, and that was really what catapulted us into the stratosphere, as it were.
Yeah, that started the great problems, all right? Because when you get 40,000 backers on a Kickstarter and you're quite a small company, it's a lot to do.
Well, I played Dark Souls. I really liked it. It's punishing.
It's a Marmite product, right?
I think if you talk about transferring a video game to a board game / skirmish game, you've got to have done the closest I've ever seen, mainly because the video game completely kicked my arse, and then the board game did exactly the same thing. So well done for continuity.
Well, thank you very much.
It was beautiful miniatures as well.
It was definitely one of those. Yeah, we again, we were learning as we go, but we were, one of the things that we are is fast learners, and we try not to make the same mistake more than once or twice. So,
well, if I compliment you, because I didn't, as much as I enjoyed the game, I didn't know your company particularly.
Right.
It felt like a game where your pedigree was 20 years baked when I...
That's great.
It felt like if you knew, I wouldn't have known you were a relatively...
No, thank you for that.
At the time, then I thought it was...
It's sometimes it's a source of frustration, because I feel like over the years we've been compared with companies that are way bigger than us. It's like, wow, Simon do this, and you're like, they're like 50 times bigger than us. Geez. Have you seen the credit list? They've got like 100 people and working on every game. So, but it's nice to be compared, although sometimes it feels like, but now as we've grown and we've got better at what we do, and we've learned a heck of a lot of hard lessons, as Rich was saying, like Dark Souls, 40,000 backers, like you only have to screw up by $10, and that is like a heinous amount of money that you've got to accommodate somehow. And in amongst there, we had Brexit screwed us over. We
I've heard that was pretty.
We lost about 800 grand overnight.
Yeah, literally from the exchange. It was 800 grand overnight, and pretty much wiped the profit out from the project.
There was a profit and the contingency and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that put us beyond the 8 ball. So
wow. A bit not being very good at a lot of things.
Yes, 800 grand is a lot of money.
Maybe not to you, Pat. To us.
For us, mere mortals, Pat.
100,000 Greg sausage rolls.
There's a lot of sausage.
That is a lot.
That's at least 6 months' worth.
And that was purely currency change.
Okay, right, that was going to be my question.
Yeah, so we kickstarted, received the funds in pounds. All of our debt associated with it, i.e. with the manufacturers and everything, is all in dollars. And then Brexit happened, and 20% got wiped off of the
Brexit happened while the money was transferring from the account to us, basically, in the 14-day period as well. So it was the worst time it could have happened.
Yeah, 3 or 4 days either side, and we'd have been all right. But there you go. But look on the bright side, we've learned about hedging and
We did
making
learn a lot
sure we
about that,
have decent effects accounts now. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good, it is a good piece because we've absolutely made mistakes, on this journey. We've absolutely made things right. We've learned, like Matt said, it really gritted us to how to bring a product to market, and in a very public way, which usually then things happen behind the scenes with Kickstarter. That doesn't, it's very up in the front, but we've always delivered on what was said. We've always delivered every Dark Souls product we've made. Every backer got every piece of that, and we've used that as a foundation, didn't we, for our philosophy around what we do, and definitely helped us kind of grow and experience. I think by experiencing that hardship and some of those areas, and also respecting our license holder like Bandai Namco, who are, we never wanted to put them in any position where their brand would be hurt. So, and we did a very good job of respecting that and then delivering on that.
How hard was it to create something that's somebody else's vision?
in what way?
Well, because obviously Dark Souls, Demon Souls, it's been an existing thing for a while. It's loved by a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people sort of sit on the edge of their seat waiting for the next one of them to come out. And also design and aesthetics wise, because as much as I've only dabbled in that, but I was a big Bloodborne player. And they have a very unique design. The creature design and so on is quite unusual. And even the way the game plays to some degree, this thing of you play through one way, it opens doors for you need to come back on yourself and so on. How hard is it to translate and to agree on with somebody to get something that's...
So we've got a fairly tried and tested creative process for working with licensed partners. And I've often talked about things like getting into the DNA of the game. But I've kind of evolved that. And the best way I can describe it is think of any property like a video game or a TV show or a movie. Why do you love it? And it's generally because of the emotional response that product causes in you. Like I've read novels where at the end I've cried. Literally physically, like grown-ass man cry. Are you allowed to swear?
The end of the Hungry
Yes, okay, cool. Yeah, and your tears are streaming down your face as a character dies. And it's just words on a page. So I'm emotionally engaged in it. So why am I emotionally engaged? What is it actually doing that's creating that emotional attachment? And then when a video game is actually slightly easier because the reasons why you're getting engaged in it are more tangible. They're easier to kind of hook onto. It's the visuals, it's the voice actors, it's the story, it's the challenge of the gameplay. Dark Souls is all about that. Reward for people, tenacity and learning and understanding and constantly pushing forwards and taking sort of setbacks in their stride. So once you kind of get that, it's then looking at the medium that you're working in. So we happen to work in cardboard and plastic. Video games work in, pixels and triangles, right? And videographers work in lighting and acting and everything. So it's looking at the medium that you work with and trying to generate the same emotional response. So the example that I always latch onto is the Resident Evil game. And one of the things that's commonly accepted about Resident Evil is that sense of constant pressure, constant resource scarcity, and you feeling that anything could happen at any point in time. So that's what gives you that kind of survival horror Resident Evil sort of feel. Now, if you talk to someone like Sherwin, lead designer on it, he's able to kind of play through Resident Evil and have 1,000 bullets left over, and because once you you uncover it all, you know where everything is, and you know what you do need to shoot, what you don't need to shoot. But for that game, we wanted to create that sense that you had to count your bullets, you had to be careful of what your ammo was, you could only carry so much ammo. Reloading your gun actually takes a heavy hit in the action economy. It creates all those tiny little micro abrasions where you're feeling a lot of pressure from the game. And then it makes people go, oh, it feels just like Resident Evil because you've got the visuals are there as well. It says Resident Evil on the box, so you already got your brain in the right kind of frame. Yeah. And now you're getting all these things where you're like, oh, it makes me feel like I'm playing Resident Evil. Oh, this is cool. So that's what we try and do is if we can make ourselves feel like it feels like this game, then we know we're into the right track. Rather than trying to, I think the easiest route is to create a facsimile. You look at like some of the core systems in a video game and you try and just emulate them. Take Halo, for example. Why would you try and do an active reload? Or Gears of War. Why would you try and do an active reload as an actual mechanic? It just wouldn't work. But what is it they're trying to actually do? They're trying to reward you for making a good decision about when to reload and when not to reload.
Yeah.
So that's the bit, not the actual thing that you do.
Yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned this recently. I can't remember what we were chatting about, but about active reload in Gears of War. And I do it just so you hear Marcus Phoenix go, yo, yeah. and that suits me down to the ground. We put out on Patreon that you guys were coming, and if people had sort of like questions and bits and bobs, and someone said,
Here's one of them. Where's my Dark Souls?
no, where he says, not a question, just a thank you for making the Resident Evil 2 board games.
Oh, bless.
Very nice.
We've got a team of awesome sculptors, designers, developers on that. That was a labour of love. There's a couple of real super fans working on that project.
Oh, that sounds great. And
I think it is good. Like, like you said, you're kind of, because of the caliber of your portfolio, which is huge. Like I first came across you a couple of years ago at UK Games Expo. We had a quick chat. It was because of the Resident Evil 2 board game.
Right.
But to say you're a 10-year-old company, I imagine you've both got the, oh my God, wow, like the amount of things we've got. Because it was Guild Ball, then onto your Dark Souls, then more and more video game tie-in partners, those licenses. But because of the size of that and how that's perceived, you probably also, like you say, tarnish with that same brush of how can you not possibly be as who did you say is the example, like a
Seymour, for example,
Workshop and Asmodee, thingy like that. And it is a case of, no, these guys have got a lot out, but you're not this huge company. You're here talking to us like normal human beings, which is fantastic.
Well, anyone can act for about an hour.
We managed to do it once a week.
I think working with these licensed partners, we're very humbled and respectful and lucky, to get these relationships.
I'm arrogant as fuck.
Okay.
I'm so
And cut.
But I think it really has helped us, kind of. We've always got to be that respectful to those licenses, and I think it constantly pushed us, to try and make the best product for those the IPs, and really kind of push the envelope on what we can do and continually develop. And I think that's what we have done, and we've seen that from our fans from the early days and fans now, is that people have seen the progression of Steamforged. Like you say, although we're a 10-year-old company, we're still babies in the industry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you're working on a licensed game, and this is true for our own IP as much as it is for a licensed game, but when you're talking with potential partners to kind of take on one of their brands, you have to recognize that in some small way, your duty is to enhance fans of that IP's experience.
Yeah.
It's not to just go deeper on it. It's to give them a different way of playing, or a new way of interacting with the world, or a new way of discovering things about it. So as long as you look at what you do as some way of as a value enhancement, it frames you in the right way. And I think it's very easy to, we've often said that we will never white box by that. We won't have a standard game engine that will just take Monopoly, right? Monopoly's got a standard game engine, just slap whatever wrapper on it you want, make a bucket load of money.
We know.
We played the Warhammer one recently,
right?
And that is just that, exactly that.
Yeah.
They didn't even change like the houses and hotels.
No.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh,
No.
come on. Honestly,
They're not little bastions or hive cities. They
just
are
like little houses.
Yeah, blue and green and red.
Amazing.
There's
I didn't know that.
And apparently, as a space marine, you can still go to jail.
I'm just going to shake
Get
my
old
head.
Ken Road as a space marine.
I'm going to shake my head in dismay at that, honestly.
Because there is a Stranger Things Monopoly that has like, instead of the hotels, you have little tapes, and that has some
that's cool.
different mechanics.
So that's cool.
And things like that.
To be fair, I think
Warhammer one is
Warhammer was quite an early one, though, wasn't it? In its defence, I think I think they're of their license.
Before that, there was London and LA.
But that's just
like that Monopoly is like, it's really formalized now. So if you had an IP that you wanted to put on, you would literally apply to them. They'll send you a form. It'll tell you, fill in this form, and it'll literally, what is Park Lane called? What is Mayfair called?
Yeah.
And it'll be like, rewrite all of these things, upload these assets to this standard, press a button, and it kind of goes, and that's it.
Oh, wow.
There's very little human-to-human interaction with it. It's kind of depressing, isn't it? Don't buy Monopoly, kids. Let me tell you about the interesting story about Monopoly. Did you know this? The guy who invented it, it's quite a sad story, actually.
I'm familiar. I think.
Yeah, it was. He wanted to demonstrate how bad capitalism is, and the fact that it's ultimately a race to the bottom in capitalism. So he wanted a game that emulated capitalism and made everyone miserable. So he did that, but it ended up being one of the most successful games ever.
But weirdly, still makes you miserable when you play it. So it's right to some degree.
Yeah.
But I remember a friend of mine talking about a friend of mine's a big board gamer, and he was talking about a guy who gives people the green light on their own little board game, and you know, they send him their idea and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And he said in the cover and letter, if it says, "This could be the next Monopoly," he just immediately puts it straight in the bin. And that's it. Yeah, he goes, if you think you're comparing yourself to Monopoly, you're not the person.
That line is not going to hit that.
My girlfriend bought a book from it was a German chap at Games Expo, not this year but the year previous, and I think he reviews all the best games of the year and all that sort of stuff, and people send their games to him to test out, and if the cover letter says this could be the new Monopoly, he throws it in the bin.
Yeah. So
it's quite interesting.
But,
So what do you guys think could be the new Monopoly?
question I've got with you, having now been in the licensing of video game to board game, if I put it that in a lazy way, how much of your reputation now does the work for you?
A lot. Yeah, a lot. So there's two aspects to that. One is an unfairness of the world is success begets success. So Dark Souls put us onto the map, not just with people who play games and distributors and retailers and everything like that, but also for licensed partners. They suddenly woke up to the fact, oh crikey, there's an awful lot of money that could be made. We have a lot of IP. Why don't we just pile it into board games?
We were one of the first to actually bring a video game to a board game. So it was kind of pioneering on that side as well.
I don't know if we were the first.
No, one of the first.
Yeah. That's a little bit Sun headlining.
One of. Yeah.
That's our thumbnail.
Yeah. I think we did it. I think what you, if I may expand on that, we were one of the ones that brought it in a way that then generated a huge number.
That's fair.
I think that's there were previous kind of video game adaptations that had done similar things, like AVP actually. Back in the day and stuff like that.
I feel like since, and maybe this is just my optics, but since Dark Souls, it has expanded greatly. Faster, we're seeing
definitely a catalyst piece.
I think what it was like it was back in the gold rush days where there's always prospectors up in the mountains tinkering away and grabbing little bits of gold, and I think we came along and accidentally found like this massive chunk of gold. Everyone went to the hills, boys.
It's a good way of explaining it.
3, 4 years, Dark Souls?
No,
longer than that.
8.
Was it?
Yeah.
COVID was in there. We don't count that time.
But no.
So in actual fact, I'm still in my 40s. That's good to know.
So the other thing that not only having successful products brings better opportunities, but also behaving in the right way. And as Rich was saying earlier, we work closely with our with our license partners. We try and create long-term relationships with them. We want them to look at us as a safe, reliable first port of call for any new license they have. And we have great relationships with, Sony and Microsoft and Capcom and Bandai and people like that. And they're relationships that we've cultivated and worked very hard over the last 10 years to develop. So we do get early, phone calls. Like one of the most exciting ones was a secret squirrel meeting about 5 years ago to go to London, and got shown like the Elden Ring trailer and told about Elden Ring and sworn to secrecy, and we had to cut our hands and drift it on a contract and all sorts. So, but yeah, like finding out about that stuff was unbelievable. But it just shows how much faith that they have in us. They wanted us involved as early as possible to work with the teams as closely as possible to develop the game.
Well, the one that's on my wish list, which I'm really pleased that you did, because I think it's just such a wonderful universe, was going and doing Horizon.
Oh yeah,
because I've been a big fan. I've been a big fan of both games, and the fact that you do that, and I do.
Which one do you like most? The first one or the second one?
No spoilers. I haven't finished the second one.
I've had this conversation. Conversation.
You want to say the first one, but you feel like you should say the second one.
Second one's a really clever, deeper game.
Yeah.
But I always, like I was saying before, talking about which of Deadpool movies do you prefer? I always think characters are most interesting the first time you meet
132
them.
on that, by the way.
132.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
213.
Ooh.
I think I'm 132. You know.
Yeah,
On
132.
reflection, I think I might be 132.
On
Deadpool.
oh, on
Deadpool.
Deadpool 312.
312.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
312.
I think I'm 132. I think.
Okay, yeah.
But
I'm not C3 yet.
but
Don't.
I think characters are always the most interesting the first time you meet them.
Agreed.
And I think, you know, when with
Aloy.
second one called Horizon, the Forbidden West.
Forbidden West.
Yes.
Yeah.
You already know that there's robots that look like animals.
Yep.
And you already know she's great at climbing
Yeah.
and jumping off cliffs and
It's kind of
climbing
missing
bow
that
and arrow.
Jurassic Park when you first see the dinosaur thing.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
already seen the dinosaurs.
I was saying this, like, you know, Lethal Weapon, where the first time you meet Martin Riggs, he's suicidal, he's a brilliant sniper, he's ex-martial arts, he's this,
Yeah.
and then every movie just dilutes it
It's just
further
more
and
and
further.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think the thing when that came out, I was really surprised because, if I'm being utterly honest, I just didn't think it was something that could be a board game. But the reviews I've read of it, it's really well liked, isn't it?
But it comes back to, like, what is that core DNA? What is that emotional experience that we're trying to recreate? And, you know, with a property like Horizon, quite correctly, Guerrilla and Sony are very aware of how they want their canon to be presented, how they want their game to be presented, and what you can and can't do with that. So some designers might see that as you know, overly strict limitations, but actually it just helps you eliminate options until you end up going, well, if we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't do that. Well, we're kind of left with this. What can we do in this space? Cool. This is kind of fun.
Have any of the video game creatives been resistant to you? Do they feel like that you're taking their baby and molding it away?
No. In fact, it's the other way around. So, you know, as I think we mentioned earlier, I spent 20 years making video games, so I'm quite aware of the trials and tribulations, and so part of our responsibility is not letting the studio get too carried away, because at the end of the day, the revenue they're going to generate from us doing a license deal with them is not in the same league as the actual main video game. So, you know, if you've got a team of artists and designers who passionately love board games and want to get involved, part of our job is actually to somehow keep them. You know, you need to do your day
Rein them in a
job. So,
bit.
yeah, exactly. So, it's almost always they want to be more and more involved, and you need to help them manage their time and manage their input. And
Did your heart beat very slightly quicker when you heard about the Netflix thing?
just a little bit. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
What's happening?
Netflix are going to make Horizon into
Gonna
a
make
TV
Horizon.
series.
Live action.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's very interesting.
Like I've got to admit, like you, like I've been sat here with this Horizon chat. Horizon to me is one of the games that I'm just like there's something about the juxtaposition of the natural and the man-made smashed so directly together that makes me love that. And the
Yeah.
first game was like, not only do you meet Aloy and the character and all that, but it's the introduction of the world.
Yeah.
How did this all happen? The slow reveal.
Do you know, I've got a-
absolutely. Oh, I've got goosebumps.
And what-
I got a real Horizon feel the other day when I watched. I watched Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and all the skyscrapers are all covered in plants and stuff,
Yeah.
and I got a real slight Horizon feel of watching them climb.
I
and
was
stuff.
the producer for a game for Bandai Namco, actually, called Enslaved, which
Yeah, I remember
was
that.
Journey
Oh,
to
that
the
was
West.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Journey to the West. was
Journey
it?
to the West, yeah.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
great. So
Yeah.
it kind of it was.
So it had that same sort of vibe. But one of the things we tried to do, and I remember Tamim was the creative director on that, and chatting to him, and I think this is something that the Horizon brought an insane amount of freshness to, was it is a big AAA game. Now they use a proprietary engine, but at that time there was an awful lot of Unreal games, and I don't know if you heard the concept Unreal Brown.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's essentially every Unreal game feels quite similar, and it
Yeah.
kind of sort of merges into browns and greys just because of the way people typically use it. And suddenly you've got Horizon coming out, true AAA game, massive budget, crystal clear, bright blue skies, verdant green, vegetation everywhere, and these massive robots. You're like, oh, this feels different, feels fresh.
Was that an Unreal Engine game?
It wasn't, no, it was a proprietary engine,
I
but
thought
at the
it was,
time
yeah.
there was a lot of Unreal stuff coming out, and
Yes,
if you
yes,
squinted
there
and
was,
looked
yeah.
at it, and you'd be like, oh yeah, you can see it being
Everything
made with
was Gears
Unreal
of War.
potentially.
I tell you, it was quite funny, wasn't it? That Horizon came out, and then suddenly Games Workshop Beast Snagger armor suddenly had a slightly different look about it, didn't it? The white armor with the red little triangles and things
you
on
see
it.
a thing.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Not-
But it was a good steal, though.
Yeah,
'cause it looked
definitely.
it looked really good against the Vibrant Green. I thought it was a good
Well, it's
steal.
less on the nose than Terminators, for example, or Predators.
So jumping, if I can sort of jump back. So obviously, you know.
Oh wait, no, I'm in the lead belt. I better watch what I say. I won't be allowed out. Will I?
So now
There's a sniper
obviously,
already on it.
you're known
calling
for
it
like
in.
the wider video game stuff now, and you've got a lot of IPs in that area. So obviously, you started with Guild Ball.
Yeah.
So this is the bit where, and people have probably been asking this and scratching their heads. So for the sake of the audience and me a bit, what is Guild Ball? Like, if you can just sort of like elevate a picture.
That's right.
Famous pitch.
So the elevator pitch is it's medieval soccer with axes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So it's what happens if you know there's an eternal war and conflict, and they realise that they can actually solve it through sporting endeavour, but of course human beings, being human beings, cheat. So so there's this war between the various mercantile guilds, and they realise it is again observation on capitalism. It's a race to the bottom, and if they're tearing strips out of each other, ultimately they're all going to lose. So they all get together and go, well, what if we settle our differences in public, which we can monetize and get people to come and watch the games, and they can cheer for their heroes, and we can sell them merch, and we can also, you know, fix games and do whatever stuff we need to do.
Right.
That was the whole kind of premise. So at the time of coming up with the world, is a reflection on the corruption in FIFA and UEFA and places like that. Sepp Blatter was at the
The
time
alleged corruption in.
the alleged corruption. There's blokes kind of gate crashing and chucking fake pound notes at him and stuff like that. So it was quite a corrupt time for football.
Yes.
There's a little bit.
I'm off to see the
Allegedly.
comedian that did that
Yeah.
next month. Yeah.
So it's what does that then look like if teams are sponsored by these different mercantile guilds, and what happens if you're playing football and you're basically hitting each other with axes and swords and stuff like that.
okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I heard it was really well received. It has like a great community behind it. When I've spoken to people and said, "Oh, we're having Steamforged on," they're like, "Well, ask them about Guild Ball." That seems to be the thing.
Huge following. Like,
Yeah, I think it took us by surprise, like how popular it was.
Yeah.
We did a Kickstarter originally, you know, so
Yeah.
you know, we made about 90,000, as Matt said earlier, and it was enough to kind of do something, not enough to quit the day jobs. We cracked on to get to.
I think the important bit was there was about 3,000 or 4,000 backers, which was
Yeah.
enough to kind of tip you over the
It
edge.
was
wasn't
just
it?
enough, yeah. And then we went to Salute, and we delivered the Kickstarter. It's like a couple of weeks after we were going with our first retail to Salute. And we were literally up till 3 a.m. putting little metal models in boxes, and
Yeah.
we had no idea what would happen at Salute. But we had this small, like a 2x2 booth. We're stood in it. We're about to open. The payment system goes down. We're like, well, it'll be fine, you know, whatever. And then the doors open to Salute, and we've never seen anything like it. This horde of people. They'd run into the booth. We were mobbed in. We couldn't move.
I felt sorry for the booths around us.
They're
felt
just-
so sorry because
they're just looking.
people were just queuing through their booths to
Yeah.
get onto our booth, and we had as we said, little 10 by 10.
Matt went into market trader mode. You were grabbing money and just making deals and putting it in your cargo pockets. It
That was amazing.
There was money flying around the back.
exactly.
And we just
Give me an orange crate. I mean,
I'm really sorry, our crowd's blocking your booth, but have you got any fives?
So we were like that all day till about 4:30. Half an hour before shut. It was
mad.
absolutely mental. So I think at one point we'd come off, managed to get out the stand, and we just said we might have something here. There's definitely some interest. Probably the first moment we felt.
It's a great buzz, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it was cool.
We had it this
was
year
cool.
in Chicago
Yeah.
when we were working for Artus Opus, and it was bananas.
really good.
Exhilarating, though, but.
So I think it's easy to then get locked. You almost kind of get locked in, and you know that you're on a rocket ship to Mars, but you can't quite enjoy the journey because it's going so fast, and so and tears are streaming out your faces. Like distributors are phoning up, they want big deals. Suddenly, great, you get a 50 grand order coming. You go, whoa! Oh crap, we've got to make this. Right, start making it all. So it's just constantly, one problem turns into a solution, turns into another problem, and I think it was about 3 or 4 years before we just managed to find our feet and work out where the heck we were. But
We were, we ended up in a place that we didn't imagined at the start, which is we'd made a small to medium sized business, and we had to turn into that company, and we'd never experienced that world before. So we were learning to become a company and what that entails. Me and Matt split out. We're very much doing things together. We still do a lot, but we had to split our kind of responsibilities. And I entrusted Matt with the creative side, he trusted me with the business side, and had to grow into them. And I think over the last 10 years, that's what we did. We kind of grew into that. And I think it's honest to say that I think some areas of Guild Ball did suffer while we were doing that, because we've got this huge license project. We've got Guild Ball. COVID then hit, so there's a lot of decision points we had to make during this time that we could, if we rewind the time, we'd change. But I guess that's the nature of business, that things happen like that, and we ended a place with Guild Ball where we had to kind of set the sun on it, the development on it in around COVID time, which we didn't do the best messaging. We can be honest about that. We've talked about that on our own channel and some videos. And we explained that at the time, but it's nice now to be on the other side of that, where we are now. Last year we brought Guild Ball back, it's now available again, and bringing it back to the audience, because like you say, there's a huge community around it, and the Guild Ball community project was spun up while we weren't had to develop in it. They kept it live and kept it growing, and we've been working with them now.
Yeah, I work with them. Probably speak to them a couple of times a month about various bits and pieces, like the health of the game. We talk about sort of balancing passes. We talk about new teams and stuff like that. So slowly but surely, as Rich said, we fumbled the message, right, and we just got it absolutely wrong, and that sucked, because one of the hardest things is to then dig yourself out of a hole once you realise you've put yourself into it, and it's really hard. So we tend to settle on get your head down. We just work our way through things. We don't try and explain our way through things, and we try and be judged on the results rather than what we say we're going to do. We rather just get on and do it and save our breath. But Guild Ball was obviously at a point where COVID had come along, various other things had happened. It had to kind of go into the freezer for a little while, and our intention was it was only going to go in freezer for a little while. But then when we lost control of the message and the rhetoric kind of built up that we've killed it, it was like, oh God, how do we turn this ship around? So we just had to wait. Literally had to wait until the anger and the upset and the frustration and the annoyance at us had subsided enough, so we could then start saying, well, what do you guys feel about this? What if we did this? What if we did the other? And so it was slowly but surely. But I think one of the things that kept us going during that process was reminding ourselves that however nasty it got at times, and it was a reflection of how upset and how angry people were, it goes back to that emotional response. They were emotionally attached to that game.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have been that angry if they hadn't have liked the game as much as they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a very good point.
So, whether that's true for everyone or not, I don't know. But it's certainly something that we talked about a lot internally, to sort of say, no, look, it does suck, and no one likes, half of the stuff that gets said about you on the internet, let alone the other half. And you're like, well, let's just focus on what's important. We needed, during COVID, for us to survive as a business and ideally grow, because it was a real opportunity space for like leisure industry. So for people making board games, US government kindly gave out $1,500 worth of board game vouchers to everyone, and they went out and spent them.
I mean, it was they gave 50.
It wasn't actually for board games. It was for like food and stuff. But
The
It was
yeah.
dollars, wasn't it?
yeah,
So that's
stimulus
like
package. Yeah.
£200. I don't know how.
But it was amazing. We did run a Kickstarter. It was like accidentally brilliant. But we ran a Kickstarter around the time that stimulus check landed. And it just went bonkers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was
About a
insane.
virus going around the world as well. Which was,
Oh, weird. What was that one? What was
Resident Evil.
Oh, of course, yeah. Duh. But yeah, I mean, you're right though. That's got to be quite. I don't know the word because I'm too tired still from jet lag. But it's got to be really like heartfelt and amazing to know that something you created has such a passionate community that even in the time that you've not been able to spend on it, your community has kept it going.
Yeah.
Which is just great and shows how much passion there is there for a product that you guys created. And
I mean, we love Guild Ball. Like, we always have loved Guild Ball, and to see that others have got so invested over time into it as well is brilliant. And the fact that we've now to be able to address it, bring it back, and the company itself, we've gone through 10 years now of transition, and in 2019 we We got external investment, as a minor partner from private equity, which helped us build the infrastructure inside. So, over the last kind of 4 or 5 years, we've really grown to be able to handle the what we've got, these licensed board games, and things like bringing Guild Ball back, and obviously now Warmachine. So it's it's been building that infrastructure of a business was equally as big a challenge as managing all the projects coming in.
Yeah.
Can I ask, and how in the very early days of Guild Ball, how hard was it to? And I sound like I'm being ignorant, but I know the difference. But I'm going to ask the question: how hard was it to go when it's not Blood Bowl? We're not just copying Blood Bowl. Was that tough at the beginning? Because people do have a habit of when they describe
straight
something,
comparison,
they
right?
just describe it as the nearest thing, don't they? You go, what's it like? Oh, Blood Bowl. So, but how hard was it to fight that? To make it go, this is worth playing, even if you've already got Blood Bowl on the shelf?
Yeah, no, it was pretty tricky. I think because one of the original concepts for Guild Ball was we were playing a Blood Bowl league on the PC, and then we went to the Welsh Open to play Warmachine, and we were just sitting there, and I, between rounds, and I was just looking at the table going, wouldn't it be cool if we could play Blood Bowl on this table? And that was, the very first idea for Guild Ball, was like, fantasy football. And then I remembered like Mean Streets from like 2000 AD back in the day, which is a really tiny little strip that they did. And I always loved that as well, with like the themes of the different teams and everything. So it kind of snowballed from there. But I think it's one of those, being associated with a game like Blood Bowl, that still can attract 400, 500 people to an event. Great.
See, I asked because a friend of mine is Jake Thornton, and he wrote Dreadball for Mantic, and it was that thing of how do you try and not just have people going, but I already own that.
Well, again, when we launched Guild Ball, Dreadball was also doing a Kickstarter around the time, and we had a couple of conversations, and my view was, no, let's put it out at the same time. Yeah, but we're in competition with Dreadball. I know, but everyone else will see that, and they'll write loads of articles about us and Dreadball. We're just going to get so much free marketing out of it.
It did happen as well. Like, it's that comparison.
I imagine, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, for both of us. Yeah.
We were nobodies at that time. We had a very shoestring budget to bring this to market. I think it was between us £2,000 each. We brought in. I lent mine off my dad for his pension. And that was it. That's all we had to do the whole project. We
were calling in favours, begging for instance, whatever we could. Yeah.
But so to be able to leverage, influencers talking about Dreadball and Guild Ball was great for us. Yeah.
So the path of Guild Ball, from sort of my limited research that I feel like I've done a little bit. So you started off with like your metal miniatures.
Yes.
You say it's sort of come back now. Is that with like the print on demand?
Yeah, so print on demand. We've got, for the moment, we've brought back in. So it's the entire range. Near the latter part, before we kind of paused it, we had done a lot of resin development. So we were doing the teams in resin. We were bringing them all back through that. So the sculpts had all had kind of updates and tweaks and that. So we managed to port those digital sculpts quite nicely into the print on demand system. So they're all available now.
All the sculpts have been updated.
And they had another pass as well.
Material.
Were they all? Were they hand sculpts originally when you did the metal? So
all digital.
Always digital.
Yeah. You got masters. Were you doing the casting, or did you have someone do?
No, we had our partner. One of our manufacturing partners doing the.
So they did the casting. Then there was the resin.
Yeah.
Then now.
We had we did make with the benefit of hindsight, a bad mistake. So we started off in metal. We dabbled a bit in resin for because at that time, if you were a high-end painter or you were just someone who had more money than sense, you would buy like the resin minis rather than the metal minis, because they were slightly better than the metal minis.
A little bit sharper.
Was the that's the marketing spin. That once you sprayed them up, they're pretty much the same. But we were at the point where we're on this rocket ship, and it felt like the community was like big enough, and we were like, oh, this is amazing. And we started working closely with Chinese factories on PVC, and we're like, wouldn't it be great if you could buy a Guild Ball team already made up in a box, just one stop, off you go, and we can get the price point down because like the cost of goods is lower, etc., etc. So we started doing that. What we learn is, one, if you half the price of your units and you don't double your sales, you've shifted the scales in the wrong way in terms of revenue and profit. So we're making more profit but less revenue, which as businessmen is a bit of a problem. So that's problem number one. Wasn't insurmountable. We just needed to work out how we could sell more. The bit that we absolutely didn't get right was the lifeblood of any minis game is the supply chain, and no one is immune to this. Like, we all know that Games Workshop have been enjoying some supply chain issues for the last 18 months or more. And it's horrendous. It's horrendous. And if there's anything going to turn your head away from a game faster, it's not being able to buy the toys. Right. So you go, oh well, I can't buy yours, so there's a game over there, I'm going to try that. Oh well, they've got some mini, I can buy into those. So when we went from working on a 3-month lead time for a metal team up to a 15-month lead time working on a PVC team.
Oh wow.
And that logistics jump was like a cup of cold water just smashed in your face. Oh, okay, crikey. And then there was a couple of incidents where comically the Navigators Guild managed to get lost on a ship. It's like you couldn't write it.
It got flooded, so the Navigators literally got
lost
drowned.
At sea. That then
you've
went
been waiting over a year to get them.
Right.
And then absolute shocker. And then the other thing as well is with a minis game, because you want relatively regular releases. If it goes back to cash flow, and I'm sorry if it's slightly boring, the businessy side of it, but let's say each shipment is 150 grand, right? So once you've kind of paid for the molding and the manufacturing, the shipping, 150 grand. Well, if you've got 4 releases a year and you've got a 15-month cycle, that's 5 releases, you're tying up 750 bags. Like, at any point in time, that's taken out your cash flow. It's just gone. So that kind of, as a business, locks you up. So now you're into a whole different kind of sort of paradigm. So we kind of learned those lessons the hard way, and as we were working through, we then started working with on ramping up the resin to try and get that supply chain back in play. We went through a few teething problems with the resin suppliers that we work with. Unfortunately, they couldn't do the volume.
There's a volume issue around that, and like Matt said, with the release schedule, where we were doing kind of like, we release a blister, or back in the day, miniatures, it was all blister packs in the shells, right? We thought the SKU creep was starting to come in, so we had to be aware of that. The PVC was kind of the answer, but wasn't, like Matt said. So coming back into the resin, we were able to go back to starting doing single releases of caps and stuff like that, which helped. But at that time, we were just pre-COVID, and it was, everything was starting to change. And it all just landed at a bad spot.
A bit grim. And I think the message that we hard fumbled it, but the message that we were trying to communicate was that, people are leaving the game more faster than they're joining the game. And that's the problem, right? That ultimately is the game's going to die unless we can do something about it, and we can't do anything about it. We tried a few things, and it just felt like that.
And it wasn't their fault in the game. I think very much that was the difference. Like it was our fault, right? We custodians of the game. We're managing the game and delivering to the people. So that's where we messed up on message.
So I imagine there'll be somebody watching this going, tell me about the future of Guild Ball.
I love how the thunder started rumbling, and that's like dramatic.
You're gonna have to put that back.
And by any means, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Sure.
Like, if there's nothing but if there's anything you do feel comfortable that you can talk about the future of Guild Ball.
So there's definitely a couple of unfinished aspects to Guild Ball. So you have the main teams and you have the minor teams. So there's still a number of minor teams that have been yet to be completed, so we're looking at those, quite determined to get those out, and then at the very least, at least morally and OCD wise, we can say, right, at least it's complete now. So that's something that we want to look at over the next couple of years, and then it's very much a see how it goes. We don't want to push it too hard, because I feel like there's an awful lot of trust being shown to us. But it feels like it's being lent to us by the community. They want to see us, be able to do something with us. We treasure that, and we don't want to run the risk of running too fast, too hard, and then tripping over. Because I think if we do, that'll be it. That'll be it forever. So, and we don't want that to happen. So, slowly but surely, we'll just keep making sure that the models are available for people to play. We'll make sure that the rules kind of get a routine balance, and the meta has an eye kept on it. And if we can roll out a new team every now and then that'll keep people excited, hopefully. And if we start to see it flourish and grow, then we'll obviously pump whatever effort we can in to help that. And then if it does reach a certain point, well, then we can then start attaching, internal development resources to it and really start kind of pushing the pace up. So
fantastic.
Yeah,
amazing. There we go.
A good natural thing. So you've got so obviously there was Guild Ball, then you went on to like your licensed stuff, which I'm just going to assume there are more cogs turning in that.
Very much so.
A lot.
But I'm not going to put you on. I'm definitely not putting you on the spot because I assume there's nothing you could say. But you've had the D&D side of things, which we've not touched on at all, have we? With Epic Encounters.
Yeah,
so that's a whole piece.
We're quite an unusual company because a lot of companies have kind of one aspect and they do really well at that. We've actually got several successful projects in multiple areas, and Matt, again, I've loved working with Matt all these years because his idea generation, he seems to find niches that everyone looks at it afterwards and go, why didn't we think of that? And Epic Encounters range was absolutely that one. No one's done it since, and you could talk about it.
Funny story. We're in Rich's office and we're working on Monster Hunter, but around that time, Rich had just had his Cthulhu May Die pledge delivered, and it had that hoofing great Cthulhu model. And we're all like, oh, it is cool. It's like a really cool model. And Rich is like, oh, we're doing Monster Hunter. Like, let's start looking at like what are the biggest monsters that we can do, and like everyone's kind of crowding around and sort of chatting about this. And I'm like just daydreaming, and I just sort of laid back, and I saw a model. It was a dragon model from Joan of Arc, just up on one of the shelves. And I was like, oh, they're talking about massive dragons. I like the look. I'll tell you what I really want is a massive red dragon, right? What? I want a fucking enormous red dragon that like Wizard of the Coast have never seen anything this big. What's the biggest red dragon we can do in PVC? So that sort of started that kind of conversation, and then. Then that idea came about from my laziness, which is I hate going into a store. Let's say I'm running a game and I need some kobolds. I don't want to flick through a million blisters looking for a kobold spearman and a kobold archer and maybe a kobold like riding a whatever.
Yeah.
I'm lazy. I just want to go to a drive-through window and go, one order of kobolds, please. Thank you very much, and put it in my bag, and then I'm off. So that Epic Encounters solved that problem, which was, can I one-stop shop buy an entire coherent, high-quality range of minis that delivers a specific kind of, experience?
Yeah.
And then we just layered into that. How can we then add value to what is essentially a box of minis? And that's where we started to layer in the expertise and the experience that we had at Steamforged in terms of, I've been playing D&D since I was like 10, so it's like 40 odd years now. So, and we've got similar other people. We've got decades, if not centuries, of experience. Well, how do you pump that in and help people who were getting into D&D? Because at the time, it was the meteoric rise of Critical Role. So more and more people were playing D&D. Stranger Things talked about that earlier. Everyone was just suddenly D&D aware and wanted to get into it. And I was meeting so many people who. I was chatting to them, and they were going, and they were telling me about their campaign, and they went, and then but this, and this. Well, I don't know what the rules are. I'm like, just make them up, and they're like, what? Okay, just make it up. Just say, it's +2, and then just I don't know, smash a wall down. And they're like, are you allowed to do that? How much damage can a dragon do to a wall? I go, I don't care. The D&D police aren't going to turn up to your table and tell you off. Just make it up, make it awesome, right? Make it epic. So that really kind of layered into it. So. We attracted a couple of really talented and experienced people into the role-playing side of things as well, and that's now really flourishing for us as another string to the Steamforged bag.
Brilliant. Add the most controversial logo as well, because it's a bright pink Epic Encounters logo, which I think when you first revealed that, there was definitely a quiet room for a moment.
Sometimes the genius of an idea takes a little while for people to kind of get it. But it was bright pink, and it
stands out. I mean,
everyone knows it now.
I saw it the first time I saw it was at a con. I walked past your booth and I went, "Oh, what's that?" Now I don't care about D&D. It's not my thing, but you got my attention.
There you go.
So that's it. So you've got the war games crowd, or at least the skirmish gamey war games crowd with miniatures. You've got the board games crowd with licensed things. You've got like your D&D crowd. have you thought of like going for a larger war game crowd, like fights against each other?
You should mention
that. That's what we call a segue.
Do tell us more. So now I think we're at Warmachine. So the thing that you guys started, am I right? You started as a blog about Warmachine as a couple of men.
Yeah, when we were playing, we started a blog, and Matt was doing a lot of hobby articles, and Matt's a prolific painter and doing kind of that content. I was doing more kind of the strategy side, and an incredible, thrilling dice article I wrote about dice odds and why you should always use kind of quality dice if you're in tournament. But yeah, so we started as a pair of just mates, and I think we'd reached out to PP at the time, and because we weren't press gangers or anything, they volunteered.
Sorry, PP Privateer Press.
Sorry, yeah. We'd reached out because we weren't press gangers or anything, but obviously we were getting some good traction on this kind of social side. And we said, could you send us any other new releases, or new product coming out? And I think they sent us a Bodgers game, like a little mini board game thing. And it's like, it just kind of hurt us a little bit, didn't it, back then?
Well, initially, because it's like, you haven't even looked at our website. What part of our website makes you think that we want to review a Bodgers game? It's like, come on, guys.
I think at the time,
we just wanted some minis to do some unboxings, because it was good. It was good content at that time.
And we were quite well known in the UK scene. We had a lot of connections, and we started to go to Europe. We started that. Me and Jamie, who was kind of affiliated as well, we started the European Team Championship, which kind of went on to a big tournament. So we were doing a lot of things in the community. So it did kind of jills us a little bit, I think we forgive him now because we. But yeah, that's where we started, and then roll on 10 years now. I think last Gen Con that we started talking. Well, a few years prior to that as well, we started talking to Matt Wilson, Privateer Press owner, and. We were saying, we'd love to work with you, and potentially, as Matt said before about COVID, although COVID wasn't great for everyone, for us, we'd made a lot of strategic decisions, the hard decisions, but strategic business decisions, and it meant that we come out quite strong from the back of that. And the industry, as you've probably seen, especially in the board game realm and others, is everyone took a hit, right? And we've managed to work with a few IP holders and found another string of our business that has opened up, which is companies that may have been struggling, where we can potentially acquire the IP and then re-engage with that company on a development side. So that way we get the IP, we grow that product, but also we get to give those people a kind of journey. Ufia, I'll take as an example. They kind of they said we can't do the game anymore, things like that. It's not worked out. We managed to go in there, acquire the IP, work with them now, working 2 years now with them as a development studio. We're paying for that. They continue in making the game. The IP comes to us, we sell the game. It's been a great relationship. And
I think it's not uncommon that you get some people who have amazing ideas for a game, and they realise it, and that's almost the easy bit. It's not. But then the hard bit is then to sustain it and build it and grow it, and the business side of it. And just because you can come up with an amazing game doesn't always necessarily go hand in glove with, and you can run a successful games business. It's two different skills.
Well, I think the one that wounded me the most, and this is how I became aware of Warmachine, was because it was sold in the now long gone, sadly, but there used to be a shop not a million miles from here called Maelstrom.
It's brilliant shop.
And I used to see Warmachine in there all the time, but I was a really big fan of Confrontation. Rackham Rackham not only shooting themselves in the foot, but bought brand new trainers first and then shot themselves in the foot. It was just the worst decision. The worst business decision you'll have ever seen in your entire life.
We're not sitting here saying we've made the great choice all the time.
But you haven't Rackhammed.
We haven't Rackham. No, we didn't do that.
For those that don't know, Rackham made Confrontation, which was a skirmish game.
Beautiful, wasn't it?
Beautiful, fantasy miniatures, things that a lot of things, orcs, dwarfs, ogres, all this stuff. But then things that you didn't have before, which was like. Tribes of werewolf men.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And then you had bad guy werewolf men as well, like you would have elves and dark elves. And then the human race in it was broken up into different sorts of almost like religious factions. And the thing about the game that was amazing was you could play it as skirmish, you could collect enough of it and play it as as what was known as Ragnarok, which was playing it as like Warhammer Fantasy Battle. And then it also had its own version of basically what was called Space Hulk, where it was basically Space Hulk called Nemesis, but only a small faction within the game of humans played against another one. But it had an amazingly good magazine that came out.
Ravage, wasn't it?
Yeah, about Cry Havoc.
Yeah, Cry.
It came about 4 times a year. And that when you played the game, you needed like a little card. You didn't have a codex, you just had a card that represented your miniature or group of miniatures if they were the same. And then they would expand the Space Hulk game by going, oh, these mercenaries are going in, or these guys are going in because they're friends with them, or this. And then they made a role-playing game called Cadwallon, which was this city of thieves who are all, lots of guilds and all the rest of it. And you could play it as a role-playing game, but then you could take their miniatures and play it in the skirmish game, play it in the big war game. Some of them mercenaries made their way underground into the equivalent, this Nemesis, which was like Space Hulk. And it was absolutely brilliant. And you know what was beautiful about it was when you bought Cry Havoc, it would sometimes have this beautiful piece of art of a miniature, a painting of something that was on the way. And, sometimes like with Games Workshop, you'll get, you don't see it so much now, but they used to do concept sketches, didn't they?
Yeah.
I remember the early concept sketches for Black Templars, and you went, oh my good God, they look absolutely gothically amazing. And when they turned up, they came up with a very small little sprue that went, here's a gun with a chain round it. Yeah. And that was all they did. But in that magazine, if you've seen this ridiculously ornate, over-the-top painting, when the miniature came out, it just looked exactly the same as the painting.
Oh, wow.
It was almost like the painting was based on the miniature, not the miniature was based on the painting.
Yeah.
And then they did this really weird decision for these beautiful... They were a painter's dream of miniatures.
Oh, definitely.
They were
incredible metals as well.
They were the first, and they were metal. And they were the first people I'd ever seen doing MMM.
Yeah.
Was them.
Well, I think, because I think that's a bit like Infinity, actually, with Angel. I think the painting style was so different and so,
almost sold
like,
itself.
wow, it elevated the game. People had this aspirational kind of quality to it.
And they did this thing where they made this one big creature that they made in a different material. And everyone was like, oh, are you coming away from metal? And they went, no, we promise we're not coming away from metal. This is just too big to do in metal. We're doing this thing. And then...
It's like that meme with the guy walking with his girlfriend and then...
and then they decided that let's get more people into it quicker. And you think going from metal, going maybe to resin, maybe going to plastic, pre-painted in a box, completely molded.
Yeah, insane.
And they were dead in what, a year?
It was the early.
I mean, we went to PVC and I was like, we should have done that. But to go pre-painted,
They were dead in what, a year?
Yeah, it didn't take long.
And they were a game that was completely a painter's game.
Yeah.
They really
was
were, and they were dead in a year.
Yeah.
So it shows you can really left it at the light and really straight into that quarry.
Yeah.
I think when you look at Warmachine, if you look at Warmachine, its kind of career progression of the game, it was the only system to ever challenge Games Workshop in the US. It's absolutely huge.
Said that,
It was lovely, mint. I never played a game of it, but I formed over it when I was going to buy my Confrontation, and I was an Infinity player, so I was in Maelstrom a lot,
Right.
and I used to look at it and go, it's just and I love the idea of for those that don't know the game, it generally, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, it generally came with like one large robot type thing called a jack.
That's it,
Is that right?
yeah.
And then you would have like a skirmish team around that.
Yeah.
And it had some really cool themes.
And the game
I just like the ones that looked like Russians always.
Right.
The Kador, yeah. So it was a game that scaled from a small skirmish style, so a warcaster, maybe a couple of jacks, maybe a couple of solos, a couple of units, and then it scaled all the way up to having many of them. So you'd have full armies.
And then you had a blended thing of there was a fantasy spin-off, but you could blend the two things together, didn't you?
Yeah.
Remind me of the name of that?
It's called Hordes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was essentially the Warmachine. It uses a focus mechanic. Focus is the currency, and for the fantasy version is a fury mechanic. So it does the same thing but in a different way. But what it does, which was quite clever, is it just flips the way. An awful lot of things with resource management is risk management, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Fury did it in a way that you had to think ahead. But if you thought ahead, you were okay. Whereas Focus was much more about, this is my resource, I need to manage this carefully. Fury was, I need some resource in the following turn, so I need to do this and this to have that resource available to me.
How long was Warmachine dormant when you took it on?
It was.
I don't think
It was never dormant, yeah. Because we obviously looked at the business case of buying it, right? And so it was still. There is a very hardcore following.
Right. Okay.
So the numbers were still, when you look at it, you'd be surprised in comparison to other game systems how big that following is. The app. Just to give you an idea, our app has got 20,000 people registered on the app. Right. So there's a lot of people.
That's nearly doubled since.
It's nearly doubled. Yeah, it was about 13 before we took it, and we've got a massive increase, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But it was kind of on the decline. Yeah, and there's a combination of there's many theories online, and there's many videos about what happened to Warmachine decline. We're looking from anything from like the 1,600 SKUs they had at some point. It's taking up, as you said, racks in a game store, and then there's that combination along with kind of the business management side, some of the decisions around that, alongside kind of Games Workshop waking up to the community, because at the time when they were big, there was a very much kind of closed door attitude from GW. They've done great work in the last few years to re-engage on that side. And I think when you factor all this together, again as well, PP went into China to do some PVC, not PVC, HIPS basic, and then PVC basic. They ended up with like this mix, which didn't work well. It's a common story we're talking about material changes and how it affects player bases, and all led to a point when we were talking to Matt, then Matt Wilson, that COVID kind of hit, and that was really the sting that at the end of that to open other conversations. For us, it's an opportunity piece, because what the Iron Kingdoms is, it's 25 years now of an incredible world. Like, it's a fantastic world with one of the best game systems aside from Guild Ball, like for rules side. It's not biased at all, it's all right, yeah. One of the best systems around, for the cleanliness of play, for how nice and straightforward it is, and easy to put on the table and understand. And I think, when we look at the fundamentals around it, we had to assess, is it, worth, acquiring and taking forward? It just screamed yes, didn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's a couple of things that's worth kind of highlighting is one, no one ever deliberately makes a bad decision. So you only ever make the decisions with the information you have and what you think
but I've got kids.
As have I. But at that moment in time, it felt like a really good idea. And then you get to live with the results, don't you? So,
Afraid so.
Yeah. So I think there's an awful lot of, as Rich says, there's a commonality, material change. Whenever you look at changing material, we should just write a book and just give it to anyone who's starting a war games company. You're thinking of material change, stop. Don't until you're really, really sure, because it is really, really bad. But I think the other thing
Games Workshop even did it, and they're the biggest hitters, and it didn't go well for them.
Didn't go well for them either. Malifaux happened with Malifaux was.
Oh, did they do it too as well?
Well, they overnight swapped their entire range from metal to hips. I don't know how they funded it, but then that was the beginning of the flat line for Malifaux as well, because that's been kind of.
People don't like change, do they?
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
But going to plastic, I thought would prove.
I think the one change in the room is going to the hips, and it's mainly because of what Games Workshop has established, because their hip sets are phenomenal, right? The best in the industry, and it's set a standard. So I think there is varying qualities in hips, and that's the dangerous.
Hips is cake and eat it, right? You can get the quality up, and you can get the production volume.
Yeah.
Right, so you could have super top tier, like we worked on bismuth kind of metal, which was unbelievably good, slow production. You could work with 3D, like with resin, absolutely unbelievable quality, slow as hell production. Or you could work with hips, you could get not quite to like that pinpoint perfect, but you can get pretty darn close. We've all seen
more than good enough.
It's more than good enough. Like you look at half the, the Golden Demon entries, like they're plastic kits, they look phenomenal. So you can definitely get the quality, but they can pump out 1,000 frames an hour. Whereas if you're mixing up your resin and pouring it in, you might get like 10 minutes.
And I think historically with hips, the main issue with hips has been made to the investment, because it's not only the time investment but the cost. And over the last few years that has started to change a lot. And that has allowed kind of us, we're reinvested in hips and going down the route on certain things, and again on retail lines, especially like Matt said, it allows that beautiful balance of delivering the amount of product you need, along with getting the price point where it is as well.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's something we were talking about before. Is like the materials are really a different thing. It's interesting that you've come up with like, if you're thinking of a material change, don't. But it's kind of like right now you've kind of got the 4 options, haven't you? You've got metal, resin, 3D printed resin, which is a different material.
Yep.
They're not the same, and 5 hips and PVC.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would have thought like hips is like you say, if you can get to hips, that's what everyone wants, because not only do you have those benefits of like production's fast and cost
materials
is low,
resilient, can take a drop on the floor.
It's resilient, it can take a drop, but it's easy to work with as well. Relatively, like I'd much rather shave down a plastic sprue than glue together any resin or metal with super glue. That
I mean, Gainsbourg, they've been doing it for a long time there, and they've got incredible success, and they should be looked at as the leads in the industry, and they do it for a reason, and that mix they have of the not Forge World now, but like kind of direct resin, they do for the kind of slower lines or the smaller lines or the big expensive lines, along with the retail side being predominantly the hips is a really good mix.
I often, like you see on I mean, I watch a lot of painting YouTube content, and there's always someone who goes, I'm going to shave the Aquila off, and I'm like, you wouldn't have done that in my day, mate.
Oh God, no.
Could you imagine that on a metal painting?
Yeah, we'll shave the Aquila off, neck and just plaster.
I'm going to shave this. So I took it to this engineering fair.
Yeah, exactly.
He said I should have it back in 6 weeks.
I think with hips,
I was just going to say, it's good people have got choice now, because people, I've got a preference. I don't mind generally. Like I do a lot of 3D printing stuff just through what I do. I love 3D printed models. I think they're fantastic. The detail's great. But again, if I'm doing an army, hips sometimes is a little bit easier than working with.
And I think with hips as well, there is quality hips and less quality hips as well, and a lot of that comes down to the technical part of. And we've been working very hard on trying to get that knowledge into that piece, haven't we?
Yeah, I think one of something that's interesting sharing is knowing the material that your mini's going to be made into has a material impact all the way up to concept stage. So, take for example 3D printing, something you know an awful lot about. If you're able to sculpt a mini so it's self-supporting, therefore you need less artificial supports, you end up with a better quality print, and you can do more things with like with a 3D print, assuming your supporting skills are cool, you could have a fireball effect that kind of literally goes around the arm. Well, you couldn't do that in any other material. So there are things that you can do in 3D resin you just can't do in any other material. Similarly, if you're moving into hips, you need to think about drafting angles and where the mold lines are going to be and what the build instructions are going to be and things like that. So it's all very different, and that's why I think switching materials, apart from logistics, also really impacts everything. And I don't think you realize it until you learn it the hard way. So
you can't just go, we've got a digital sculpt, boom, we drop that in a 3D printer. And I think through a lot of the 3D printing I've been doing is I've seen so many miniatures out there, hundreds of thousands of miniatures. And what I've noticed more often than not, and not to put any individual sculptor down, is people are fantastic sculptors, incredibly detailed sculptors. There are a lot of people who are incredible sculptors who don't fully understand the fundamentals of putting a tabletop miniature together.
Agreed.
And that, again, is not...
Well, that's stage one. Stage two is they often don't paint.
Yes.
This is one of the things that I've tried to do since the very beginning is put paint. I haven't painted every mini we've made because we've made a lot, but I've painted a lot of them. I mean, fortunately, I'm fast at painting, but I just think you can't sign off on a mini until you've painted it, because there's some minis that look amazing and they're just not fun to paint. They're just miserable.
Do you know, the funny thing is, some of you all know I'm a barber, and only on Saturday I had one of my customers who's my mechanic, and he actually said, how's it been? And he was talking about how much of a pain he had with this particular car, and he says, you know what, the people at Renault who design cars, I'd never have to worry about being the person that changes the light bulb.
Right.
Because they
Exactly.
can make this extraordinarily complex way of how that light comes
Yeah.
out to get a light bulb in.
Yeah.
The simplest
Someone
of jobs.
else's job,
Yeah.
isn't it?
He can design it like that because he never has to worry about taking that apart and putting a light bulb in.
I did.
And I think that's the same.
Yeah, I said
think
it. I
that's
said
the
it
same with
as
sculptors, isn't
said
it?
as a joke to one of our sculptors, and they were sort of showing me a model, and I said, I think it's over designed. I said, there's too much detail in it. We need to kind of really, polish up the silhouette, streamline it down. They're like, oh, what do you mean too much detail? I said, I'll tell you what, print it off, come back to me when you've painted that and you've edge highlighted every edge. And they went, oh, yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Right, cool.
You know what?
Let's
That's
go.
good though, and I'm glad you're asking that question because as we head into the future, where 3D printing is going to become a much bigger part of everyone's hobby as prices come down and availability goes up, like people designing models with that in mind and go, actually, not only do you have to print it, people have got to not only paint it but enjoy the process of painting
Definitely.
it. If they don't enjoy a part of the experience, they'll be like, I'll go and buy something else.
It's a great. I mean, we love 3D printing very much so. With Guild Ball, when we brought it back as a POD, we did 2 free STL sets so people can download and play Guild Ball.
Fantastic.
I mean, back in the day, we give free rule books and cards, and that was our way of kind of getting people to play the game. The fact we can now say, literally go and play Guild Ball for free is brilliant, right?
Yeah.
And we want the same kind of thing for where we're going. I think you're right though. Is that there's engineering that goes behind that is not as obvious, and again, it's just experience, time, and working with that stage. And I think, although it's a cool boom era at the moment, and we've got a lot of boom, happening, I think what we'll see over time now is that people will want them kind of supporting models that really do the print nice and easy.
I've seen a few. Who's the Australian channel? Can't remember. They pop up in my YouTube shorts every now and then.
Tabletop Time.
Yes. And they were talking
With
about
the crew, the couple of guys and
a lady, yeah. But they were talking
nice
about over designed. Yeah, they're really good content. They were talking about Games Workshop minis, and they're saying they're becoming more and more over designed. And I think I see it in game design as well, that you think that adding complexity and adding layers is actually better design, and it's kind of not.
Yeah.
It's just
Or
more
one-page
craft.
rules are showing that.
Oh, one-page rules are awesome.
Yeah,
I
nice
played
showing
them in
that.
UKGE. They were really cool. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'd ever make it my full game, but to kind of rock up and just throw some minis down, definitely would play it. Yeah.
That's it, and they're keeping it simple as well. Like people, I've seen in the forums because I work with them quite a bit, and people are like, "Oh, your minis are too simple." I'm like, "No, they're not.
No.
They're actually like your Saurian. They've got Saurian star hosts, which are lizard men in space." And I'm like, even they're a little bit over. Yeah, allegedly. Men. Yeah. That's
Well,
what-
why do you think-
Reptilian men in space.
reptilian men in space.
Why do we think Space Marines have been so popular
Exactly.
forever? You spray them one colour, you paint on a few bits, and you're kind of done, aren't you?
And that's it. And that's what GW. It's so accessible.
Yeah.
And
Very
if
much
only the games were. But yeah,
See our other show.
But yeah, and it's the accessibility of whether you want to get into a game or you want to do this, like Space Marines versus Space Marines, you can do, but you can just paint them.
Yeah.
They are they are made of simple cylinders, ovals. What other shapes are there? Squares, rectangles, diamonds.
Diamonds.
I'm trying to think of me thing when I was a kid. What goes in what hole?
Still playing that now, aren't you?
All goes in the square hole. But yeah, it's that sort of thing. It's simple, it's approachable, and yeah, it's good that not everyone needs to be that simple. But you're right. To have somebody, you don't even need to have made miniatures, but you need to have spent the time you guys have spent as wargamers looking at them, painting them, and going, what do I enjoy about this, and how can I?
I'll pick on something because I can dunk on it now. Was back in the day for Troll Bloods, there was a 1 point. So it was 1 point out of 75 points. There was a unit attachment.
The Chronicler.
Yeah, Chronicler, and you really wanted it because it brought an awful lot of functionality. It was great value. 1 point. It was fantastic. And like I say, I'm quite quick at painting models. If I take longer than 60 minutes to paint a model, then I'm kind of sad. I like sort of 30 minutes, is my sweet spot.
He's being modest here. He's insanely good at speed painting, and it's
This
depressing
model-
for anyone else.
We're on back next week. What page do you use?
There's some
one
G
model.
circles I can show you to get working on.
Took me 4 hours. It had stitches, it had studs, it had scrolls, it had tassels, it had why am I spending 4 hours painting this 1 point
I
model?
think-
It's ridiculous.
I think the comment on miniature design is, it comes with people come at it the wrong way when they say a miniature is too simple. I think the answer is the miniature is complex enough.
Yeah, I like
the nice
that.
way of
I
Yeah.
think is the answer to that. I think. Yeah.
So what is next up for Warmachine?
So we're working through. Yeah, no, we can absolutely. So there's a couple of layers to it. So we have one eye on the now, and then we have one eye on the future.
Yeah.
And for now, the important things is to steady the ship, strengthen where needed, and conserve where we're not needed. So right now, fortunately, the design team and the direction in which the team are going is actually really strong. So for my direct responsibility of oversight of the creative endeavor, it's actually kind of an easy gig at the moment. And there's a few things that that we want to shape and massage, but these are more kind of minor nudges or slight sort of realignments, but nothing kind of earth shattering. Where we do need to spend a bit more time is on the production side of things, because as demand is increasing and it exploded, as Rich said, it almost doubled overnight when we took on board. And what we thought was a big enough window for manufacturing for our kind of first foray into releasing stuff for sale actually wasn't. So that's fine, not a problem, nice problem to have. So we're strengthening the production side of things. We're building new farms and whatnot to kind of get that all ramped up. And it's also a degree of retraining the team to kind of understand how to work in a more efficient way, a more effective way. Similarly with the marketing side of things, so that's Rich's direct team is building a marketing plan that's coherent with the releases that we're doing, the products that we're working on, and making sure we've got some good content coming out. So it's really as you are, but just better in the places that were a little bit on the weak side. Beyond that, there is definitely some hard decisions that have got to be made. As Rich touched on earlier, Warmachine, if you talk to a retailer or distributor, it's infamous for the scope creep, or the SKU creep. So one of the things I think the Games Workshop does brilliantly, and we're absolutely going to copy them, is they will sell, you can go in on the stockist program, you get a rack. You can go onto the 2 rack, you get 2 racks. If you want to go beyond that, that's under you. You do you, but the Games Workshop will curate a 2 rack product range. So it will have some of the new releases, some of the stuff that always sells, and everything like that.
Star Wars stuff.
Exactly. So for a store, because most store, and especially here in the UK and in Europe, where floor space is so expensive, they don't want something that's going to take up an entire wall, and or if it is going to take up an entire wall, it needs to be high turn, and it isn't always high turn. If you're trying to carry esoteric, 1-point UAs that take 4 hours to paint, then you're not going to sell one of those every hour. You might sell one of those a month kind of thing. So that's something that we're working on is closely with our distribution and retail partners to make sure we got that curated range, so they understand what the commitment is in terms of their floor space, and then harmonious with that, and perhaps most importantly out of all of these things is actually properly defining and designing the funnel, we call it. It's the onboard system. So what is the very best place to discover Warmachine? What was that user journey look like? What is the next best place to go to? How are people going to feel about it? What questions are they going to have at the various stages? And making sure that we're designing products and creating content that makes that process a lot easier. Because we've all got into someone's showing you a brand new game, you go, oh, it looks amazing, where do I start? They go, oh, read this, and you're like,
We had that chat
can you
last
just
week.
tell me the thing to buy, please? Like, here's 50 quid. Can I just have some minis? I don't care if they're great or not. Just want to get going. So we want to make it a lot easier for people to overcome that kind of barrier for entry.
Yeah.
I have a question. As you both said at the beginning of the interview, we're big Warmachine players. How hard is it when you take on something that you already loved to put a gap between you and it? Because someone said to me, you're now running Games Workshop, you're now running the space, even just the Space Marine line.
Sure.
Obviously, it would all lean into what I love. Well, how hard is it when you're now
For some
steering
of us,
the
it's
ship
harder than
I
others.
knew he was going to point at me.
Now we're getting to the real interview.
No, we did, before we did this acquisition, we sat down and both, me and Matt said, look, we know how passionate this is, how much we love this game and how much it's been a part of our lives. But at the end of the day, if we use that correctly, it's only going to be a strength for the brand. What we're doing.
Yeah.
If we use it poorly, we're going to make terrible business decisions, and we're going to be in a bad place. So
we'll have a lot of minis.
We'll have a lot of minis. So I think we are very conscious. It's not just us. We say me and Matt. Steamforged is 50 people now. Mm-hmm. A lot of them play Warmachine. Come from that background, and so we've been mindful for the whole team. Everyone has this in the back of their heads. But what it has done, I think, and this is unique to Steamforged, is that we are gamers, we are miniature gamers, we are very specifically come from the Warmachine, heritage. The care and love we have for this brand is just like we created ourselves. We've been there, and I think that will come through, and it does come through when we talk about it and what we're doing with the brand. We very much feel like we are custodians now of this world, and we want to do the right decisions from all the experience we talked about in the show. All those 10 years of going through the good, the bad, the ugly. All that experience now is giving us this chance to work on something that we started off with, and it's crazy still thinking 10 years we're here, but we are massively looking forward to it. And like I said, it's not overnight. We've got work to do. We've got to strengthen the support of the game. We've got to get it into Europe. It was 35% of the audience was in Europe, and right now it's like 0 because of the supply, right? And there's some basics we've got to do, but as the story starts to come out over the next few months and into next year, I think it's going to be really clear that the passion and how that transition is coming into the product.
Well, for me, it's about channeling it in the right way. So we all consume kind of pop culture and media. We know that love can make you do great things and terrible things, right? People have killed other people for love, and people have done some most amazing self-sacrifices for love. So it's channeling it in the right way. So making sure that we build the team that's for Warmachine, that has that sort of almost self-regulating or peer regulation sort of feel. Are we losing sight of are we getting too far down the rabbit hole? Is this still the right decision? Is it the cool thing to do? But then having that perspective of the end user and going, how excited would I be to see that? I'm actually really excited about this. So yeah, right. So it's channeling it in the right way, but it's
must be a terrible balance.
It's not. I mean, look, dude, we make toy soldiers for a living. None of my life is that tough. It's fun, and it's and I think the greatest thing that anyone could do for their living is do something they love doing, right? So if you don't have the love or the passion for what you do, then it becomes a lot harder and a lot more soulless, I think. And so the day that we wake up and we're not passionate about not just Warmachine but any game that we make, then I think it's a sad day and probably the beginning of the end, if I'm honest with you. I don't want to be too melodramatic about it.
There used to always be this kind of idea of work-life balance, but I think I think for us it's just life, right? And as long as that all works together, and we're in the privileged position now of being able to do something that's been a massive part of our lives, and having that all together, as long as it works well, it's great. I wouldn't change it for the world, really wouldn't.
But again, as Rich said, like the fact that we have equity partners also helps really make sure that feet stay on the ground. We do have clear sets of goals and structure. The way that the business is set up. There's proper reporting, so it's sobering. It's important, and the reason it's important is because it allows you to carry on. And the more successful you are, the more stuff you can then do. And I think that's something that Rich and I have always wanted to do. Is we, in a perfect world, we'd do everything, right? But we can't do that quite yet. So what can we do now that's going to let us do 2 more things? And then when we've done those, can we do 4 more things? And when we've done that, can we do 8 more things? And that's always been our attitude. And it's not
good attitude to have.
Yeah, and it's more because I don't know, again, I don't want to be too morbid, but since turning 50, I'm kind of conscious that there's a clock now, and how many more games can I work on in my lifetime? Well, I want to work on shitloads, So you got to work hard, work fast, work smart, and really enjoy what you do.
Yeah, fantastic. So, conscious, we're going to talk about paint in a different later on this afternoon. So I think we
I can talk about paint.
Week. Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Next week.
Next week.
Coming back.
Yeah. I might be wearing the same shirt.
The same clothes. So it's like I say, we put some bits out on Patreon, and some of them are joyfully silly. So Tim says, do you really use Steam to forge your games? And if yes, how do you avoid warping the cardboard?
That is a good question. That is a good question.
So
I've often been described as having steam coming out of my ears when I get annoyed about something. I do have a slightly volatile
I remember visiting China.
personality sometimes.
I remember
Passionate.
when we visited China, actually seeing the rooms they have the cardboard in because of the humidity. So it's a fascinating thing because obviously cardboard will warp in China with the heat and that.
Yeah.
But they have fully special rooms where they put the cardboard in to level it and make sure it's flat, so you don't end up with the bendy boards basically.
And it's quite a tough resource, isn't it, to get hold of in
very
China?
much
One of
so,
the one of the richest women in the world, one of the richest Chinese women, owns a import-export business. And when she sends her containers out full of wherever they're going in the world, if them containers haven't got something to come back, she has deals with people in that country that they come back full of cardboard.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because they don't have a big forestry industry.
We've had
it.
issue with cardstock, and cardstock. We've often, I don't know, I'm familiar with card, so we've got black core and blue core and different kind of qualities and that. But some of the black core, they had to develop their own version in China of black core because it was coming from, they just couldn't get the supply of it, and that was a massive issue for the card game industry for quite a while.
Oh, crikey,
I thought it was low because, of what I've heard of, printing comes quite low cost out of China for books and things like that. So,
but it varies on the card. It's purely what paper and card they can get access to, and that dictates the price.
Because one thing that's typical first world problem, GW's boxes, the card stock has been reduced to almost paper.
Yeah, it's very,
and that frustrates me because it's just not as durable as it used to be. Or the experience of opening it, I'm just like, oh, it's all flimsy.
lacks its premiumness, doesn't it?
Yeah. But then you'd be paying
When you
even
say-
more of a premium to get.
I was going to say, lacks its price match.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess a bit happier expensive card compared to the shipping costs when we were sending models that cost the same price to ship them. That was a fun time when that happened. Yeah.
Crikey, yes. Then we have one last question, which is if you could get any license for a game, which license would it be, and what type of game would you make with
And
it?
you're not beholden to this. This is just as fans of.
What's your
Maybe
arc
be careful and not say things we've got in the
maybe you
pipeline
got-
here.
What's your arc of the covenant? Yeah.
Just put loads of beat.
That's a tough one because, typically, I have that list, and they're the ones that I go after.
Yeah.
So
There's one we both. League of Legends is.
League of Legends
we'd love
would
to
be
work on
amazing.
League of Legends.
Yeah,
Right.
I've played a lot of League over the years, and I think there's so much you could do with that, and the art that they've got. Would be
And you've
fantastic.
got the Netflix show already built into it.
Yeah,
It'd be fantastic to work on that.
Yeah, I
I
think
bet
League
when
would be pretty
Fallout came out, Modifius were just like
Yeah, I was chatting to Chris, and he just went crazy overnight.
their standard Gen Con.
Oh, yeah, it was a good show as well, wasn't it? I thought they did really well with that show.
The show was incredible. I think they absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
And then off the back of that, it's going to bring so many people into every other, the video games, the board games, Modifius' stand was predominantly.
As in the downloads for Fallout have gone through the roof, haven't they, recently?
Yeah.
The game.
But, the game, yeah.
Even I started it again. I never finished 4. No, I did. I never played 76. I was like, I'll give it a go. It's not bad. No, Far Cry from what it was, but Far Cry, that could be one.
We got Elden Ring, which was a massive. We were super happy to get that. From Bandai Namco. That was definitely on our list of things we'd love to work on. There's probably some we can't talk about as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Can you give us any scoop for our show?
Well, we've had
Any
a bit.
scoop?
You are?
We've had a bit.
Yeah.
Don't mind though.
All right, sorry.
If you say no, it's cool, but we're just, I am putting you on the spot, I accept.
Or maybe another one is when for something like Warmachine, when do you think we'll hear the next announcement-y thing?
Well, for Warmachine.
Yeah.
So for Warmachine, the next really big thing that we're gearing up for will be Adaptation next year.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So we're going to try and get back into doing keynotes. Something we did for Guild Ball. Thoroughly enjoyable experience. Had a lot of fun giving them, and the audience seemed to really enjoy it. So we're looking to make Adepticon one of our kind of key marketing beats, per calendar year. So that'll be a lot of big announcements of what our plans are for the next 12 months after that. Other than scoops for your show, I mean, have we announced yet?
What?
No.
We can cut that out. We can cut that out.
I could beep it.
I mean, just beep it.
Go on, say it again.
No. Yeah, I think we're about to do some quite big announcements that are coming up. There's going to be a lot of bleeps at this moment, isn't there? Yeah. So yeah,
They'll be reading it. Yeah, just do the what's it? The Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
With that encore. Yeah. So do that. Obviously, I think one thing that could be useful, because obviously I think clearly through you guys talking about Guild Ball, about the licensed games, about Warmachine, the community feedback is quite crucial for you guys and quite helpful for you to just get the feedback to understand where people want these systems to go. Where would be the best place for people to communicate that feedback?
So we just recently did a survey actually that we put out to survey the audience. You know, obviously requiring that PYC with that, and we got several. I think it's 5,000 overnight. Like, just replies to it. It was brilliant. Like, and it's helped us understand a lot about Warmachine and what people want and don't want from the brand. But a lot of our discussions are now going on Discord. So discord.gg/Steamforged. You'll find all our kind of ongoing chat. You'll find us in there along with our team. We're regularly talking to people. Steamforged.com is obviously the other place that a lot of our news goes on our Facebook socials. So.
I hang out on the Reddit.
The Reddit as well.
Subthread as well. Quite, yeah. I'm a bit old. Discord confuses me a little bit, I have to say.
Yeah, we're not too dissimilar. And I'm like, I've got a Discord for my channel, and I'm like, I've joined the one for this channel as well. I don't get it. What
How far back have I got to read to understand what's going on?
Exactly. I'm like, scroll. I don't need panic.
We also do our newsletter as well. So that's on Steamforged Guns. So I grab the newsletter that usually keeps people up to date.
Fantastic. Yeah. And then I think as a final sort of question for myself, what I feel like I've gleaned from you guys is you do so much and so many different types of games, and I think to myself, crikey, like, how on earth do you have all the time to do it? What's the favourite game that you've released so far?
Favorite game?
Oh, what, out of all of them?
It's a lot of stuff.
That's going to be Guild Ball for me.
It's got to be Guild Ball, because it's the one that we created as designers and developers. You know, all the way graphic design, some situations.
Yeah,
we did a lot on that project, and that was our first thing we brought to market.
I mean, they all have different stories and different reasons to love them. You know, Horizon happened at a really intense time for us. You know, as a company, and landing that deal and getting that over the line was an absolute triumph. You know, and it felt really good. And then to see the response, then being given the chance to make the game, then kicking it out of the park, an absolutely awesome game. That's super cool. So seeing, Resident Evil go from a single game and building it out into a huge franchise for us is really cool as well. So it's really hard to kind of like one size fits all. Guild Ball was the first game. Still love it to bits.
They all have stories, don't they? It's like even like Warmachine was that weird place of meeting your idol, because like Matt Wilson for us was like someone who made this brilliant game we invested some time into, and going through that journey with him, and working now as a with his development studio side that Matt does is just awesome. But they're definitely, each one's got their own little story.
Yeah, fantastic. Amazing. Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you so much, chaps.
Thank you for listening, Journey down, and we'll see you again really soon.
Hopefully.
Next week.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.